Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to 2020. Hopefully we can get a deal relatively quickly. At the last bargaining session, I believe we had Mr. Burke give his financial presentation and explain why we are where we are with the money situation at 3%. And so I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. So a question, I think I vaguely recall, since we were stuck apart on the salary number, that that you guys intended to kind of go back to the school board just to get some bearings on where to go. Just before we kind of go into anything, were you in a position to do that? So
we have an executive session planned January 22nd, but we do send them updates, and we have conversation with leadership, and we are where we are at 3%.
Okay. So I think at this time we're gonna maintain our current offer. We don't want to necessarily bargain against ourselves when you guys haven't gotten direct guidance through them in a closed door session, because even if we came down, you haven't gotten any guidance to change where you're at. So I think the 4.5 is where we've been, and right now, we wouldn't be looking to lower that.
Well, 3% is based on the guidance that we've been getting from the very beginning.
Understood.
And it's a 3% package, but the highly effective would be at 3.25.
Okay. So yeah, we're going to stick with our current offer for now. I think that we feel more comfortable having a back and forth dialogue once you guys have conveyed to them and gotten something from them. Because if you have your closed door session and he comes back and they say, look, we're not moving off it, at least then we know that was their position. But we're not, again, even if we change our offer right now, your offer is going to be exactly what it was, correct? You're not in a position to change your offer.
That's true, but if you're willing to change your offer or have another suggestion or anything like that, then we can certainly take that back to the board on the 22nd.
No, I think, at this time, I guess when you meet with them, they'll be aware of your current position. They'll be aware of our current position, and hopefully they'll give you direction so that whatever you're able to come back with at the next meeting will be informed based on their most recent advice.
Okay. Do you have any other language proposals? Because at this time we're not prepared to do anything more with language until we have the salary situation sorted out.
Well, and I guess we're pretty much in the same situation, because our position on the 3 items that we put on the table that are still open, because we've TA'd some, and the others we just said keep present language. And bereavement, the PDD day, and additional period were the 3 things that were still open on our side.
Right.
And I don't know that you made any changes in your position.
No, because that's additional funding that we don't have. So these are what they, the other units sometimes call the non-monetary asks. Even though they're monetary asks, they're not related to salary, but they're huge monetary implications to them. So, without having an idea of where we are with the salary, we can't move anywhere on the other ones.
Just for my recollection, because I'm not positive, you guys had quoted us based on average uses of bereavement days, what the price tag would be if you were to extend, I guess, 3, to our bargaining unit. I don't recall what that number was. I feel like it was 1.7-ish.
Yeah, you've a good memory there. We did an estimate, right? And we looked at where the units that have bereavement leave with ASOP and SEIU, and our experience has been that in any given year, about 12% of the workforce took advantage of it. And when they were out on bereavement leave, they took an average of 2.5 days. So we applied that to 13,000 teachers, and that's where we got to about 1.7 million a year. But there's kind of a caveat with that, is we've never done this before. I don't know, sometimes different employee groups could have a different experience, and if we end up having 20% of our teachers have bereavement leave, or 5%, whatever, that number's going to fluctuate, and it's just something that we'll probably lose a little sleep over, because we're not going to really know what the cost is until we've lived through it. And that's kind of I want to talk a little bit. So these other items, like the additional period supplements, and there was, I think, a few rates and training rates we were looking to increase. At the end of the day, we're going to have to prioritize where the money goes, whatever when the authority we get from the board, and I didn't really have a sense for, do we want to try to check off many of these things on the list, like bereavement leave and extra periods, or is the priority really to get as much money as we can into the base salary and the increase for the performance increase, I guess, for highly effective and effective teachers?
Right. Yeah, I was just sharing with you, she mentioned other language, and so I was just sharing with you the other language that was still outstanding.
Still there.
Yeah, still outstanding. And also I included, I said, I don't know if your position has changed or not, but based on your last response, it seems like it's about the same
Yes, it is.
at this point. And I think you're right also that, once we settle salary, then we can, finish up the language things, and I think that's appropriate. The other item that's outstanding is Article 2, Rights and Responsibilities, Section G, Employee Evaluation. And Vicki has shared with us both the Article 2G that we worked on outside of this group to come up with a collaborative document on the issues as it relates to evaluation. And we just have a couple of pieces that we need to address that we felt that may not have transferred over.
Well, you've looked at the CTES handbook that I sent to you. I didn't print it out because it's an
Right.
extensive document and didn't
Right.
want to waste the trees on that.
Right. So let me just share this with you, a couple things. One, we've been able to just compare the two documents to make sure that, they are in order in terms of all the information being included. And what was that rate, Randall, 95? So 95% of the information is there. But there's a 5%, piece in there that where certain information didn't get transferred over. And we looked and we found one or two items where, I say one or two, a few items where minimal, mind you, where they were not included in the transfer. And so I guess since we're not, you don't have the documents, what I like to do is, put those in here and highlight them and let you see it and review it.
Okay, that would
And
be
then see
helpful.
because there are just a couple pieces that need to, that need to be included. Not changing language or anything like that. Everything that we see where that's not included is already in the language. We just didn't carry it over. When we transferred from 2G to the CTES, we just didn't carry that information over. That's all.
Okay, yeah, if you can get that information to me, because it's a different department that handles the CTES handbook, so I want to get with them and make sure that they agree with you on those topics. So, yeah, if you can get that information to me, we can move that forward.
All right, yeah, and everything that I'm talking about is in 2G in the
Okay.
cross out.
Okay,
Okay, so it's all in there, so it's nothing we're adding new,
okay.
all right?
If it didn't get transferred over, it was an oversight. because
Right, it
that
was on, remember now, we did this collaboratively, so,
Correct.
so it was on both our parts.
Okay,
Right, so yeah,
Okay.
we get it, we just didn't, just didn't see it.
okay.
Okay, but we'll talk about it. Right. There, I was just reminded that there one area where there was something different was in the new language that we were working on. The
Correct,
last
on
thing,
the
we did have
appeals.
some, right, we did have one or two little items to add to that, but it's again, it's small fry. It's about the 10 days and the actual dates that are in there. So, but nothing significant.
Okay, because the dates we got together with those when we had our meeting and
Right.
discussed that, we had
Right.
agreed upon those dates. That
Right.
isn't something we came
So
up with, so.
the concern is that, say, for instance, if an employee in a particular class category, their last date for a potential observation is March 31st, and it says you have to file your appeal by April 5th, but the observer has 10 days to submit the scores. So what if they submit your eye observation on 3 days later on April 2nd, and now you've got 48 hours to identify appeal. So it's just at the end of the observation window. Those dates are only 5 days from the last date.
Right, we did that intentionally, if you recall from the meeting we had, was one, it was more about whether the observations occurred or not, because in the cases of the grievances we'd seen, the observations weren't done at all. So, yes, that is a very short time window, but in those earlier units, I think it's the 1A and 1B, we set those dates earlier, if you recall, early in the process, so that there was the opportunity for them to go in and reevaluate them or reobserve the teacher. So if the observation wasn't done or the feedback wasn't provided in 10 days, it gave the parties an opportunity to say, hey, let's just go back and redo this.
That's what we're saying, that if you observe me on April 30th and you submit my observation and I don't get it, because you have 10 days to click submit on my observation. Say you submit it to me 7 days later and it's April 6th. And now I just got it. And if I determine that, maybe you put a not using and then I'm past the deadline.
That was the piece, we were never permitting anybody to challenge the observations of the observer.
No, the technical
evaluation.
errors, though. Like you put a not using and then it's past the deadline for me to appeal my observation, so you never come back, never reobserve me. I can't challenge anything past that date, April 5th, in that particular category. So we're saying if observations are done like within 10 days of the deadline to appeal, you might not know you need to appeal until the deadline or after the deadline. Like we could explain it more.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That really only applies to those where they would have the opportunity to come in and do a follow-up. So I think we need to have a deeper discussion about that.
But
The whole point of those dates was so that it would give an opportunity of not just handing the teacher a score.
Right.
It was to make sure that the appeal was filed timely so that the defects could be remedied.
Right.
And we get that. We're not disagreeing with that. We just don't want anyone to get clipped by the deadline to appeal when they only found out a day earlier that, I got a not observing. Does that mean that if they don't come back and give me actionable, advice and reobserve me, and it's past April 5th, they violated the technical rules by not coming back, not speaking to me, whatever, but it's past April 5th.
Okay.
Yeah, what we're talking about is within what the spirit of what we were trying to do. One of the things we were trying to do is make sure that if there was a challenge, it was done in a timely fashion.
Correct.
Right, and we're saying that in order for it to be done in a timely fashion, that the evaluation notification has to be given before the person will know. But if the deadline date to appeal has passed,
Okay.
And yet they receive the notification 8 days later, so on April 8th, then they can't really appeal if the date is the 5th. So that was it's those kind of things, and there's nothing, nothing new we're trying to change, with the same spirit, but just some technical pieces we looked at, we thought we need to review. That's all.
So give me some suggestions on that, and I can take it back to the people who do that work.
We got it.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else?
Happy New Year.
No, we're good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
The next dates are in February, the beginning of February. I think we have the 4th, 6th, and 7th. I am going to have to cancel one of those at the 4th. There is a court hearing that I'm going to have to be at on the 4th, and possibly on the 6th. So it may just be the 7th, so we'll need to get back together and see if there's any other dates in February that might work for us.
Or we can just finish up on the 7th.
That would be wonderful. That would be great. But as a planner, since we have to have this room, I'd like to have this room available should we need it.
All right, you want to do those dates now? You want to do them?
No, I need to go back and look at the calendar, and I need to be able to access the calendar for this room. So we have to go back and look and see when we have blocks of time in this room
Right.
available.
One other thing. I see a strange fellow sitting over on the other side. Is that something?
We've added Dr. Peter Licata
Oh.
to the bargaining team. Sorry, I
It's
should
the
have.
best thing I've been called in a while.
That's pretty good.
We added him to the team. He's our South Area Regional Superintendent.
All right. Well, welcome, Pete. Thank you, man. We're glad to have you.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
So if there's not anything else, I guess we're done for the day.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming and Happy New Year.
All right, thank you, Happy New Year.